Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Black Absinthe, On Earth or in Hell, out March 27, released independently. This album has 8 tracks, 35 minutes in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. They are a Canadian heavy metal band. Now, for a record that has 8 songs and 35 minutes in length, this album is very dynamic. I was not expecting it to be so. I was expecting the record to be a little bit more compact because there's not a lot of room to wiggle. There's not a lot that you can do in order to extend and make the ebbs and flows of the album a little bit more noticeable without taking away from the overall big picture that the record is trying to portray. But they were able to create that. They were able to offer different perspectives, different styles, with some nuances, I must say, but enough to really make the album feel a lot more fluid, a lot more dynamic, with a lot more ebbs and flows without losing their characteristics of still feeling like a solid body of work, still feeling like a full-length record as it should. Once it comes into the sound, this was the part for me that was perhaps the most intriguing of them all. They're a classic heavy metal band, but they're a classic heavy metal band with an old school approach, and one could even say with an old school sound. A sound that on this record also have some elements of psychedelic rock. Not a lot of them, but a few. Enough to create some interesting nuances within those songs that allow you to feel a little bit more lost within that experience of heavy metal, but also going back to a more old school style, specifically when you look at a band like Black Sabbath. This band definitely has a huge Black Sabbath influence in them. So putting this sound together, the first thing that I thought was, okay, they're going to go with an old school production, where the whole record is going to sound like it's been stuck in a time capsule, and it was actually released in 1972, but we're getting to listen to it now. Not the case. The album has, I wouldn't call it a modern sound to it, but it doesn't feel dated. It doesn't sound dated. The experience that you get, the influences that you get are definitely old school, are definitely dated. But the record doesn't come across that way. The record still has a modern feel to it. It sounds a little bit more updated. It doesn't come from the catacombs of the past. It feels more grounded in the present, and I think that was one of the biggest surprises of this record sound-wise that allowed me to really enjoy this record and enjoy the journey, that short journey, but a journey nevertheless, that this album puts me on. The one thing I didn't like about the sound, and I'll talk more about the things that I enjoyed, was the bass. Not that I don't like the bass sound that this record has, I just don't like the way it comes across in the mix. In certain songs specifically that have a little bit more heaviness, that have a little bit more intensity, I wouldn't go as far as to say aggression, but that have a little bit more volume, a little bit more thickness on the guitar sound, that bass sound popping is subdued by that heaviness, by that thickness of the guitars. So while being noticeable, it doesn't punch through. It hits a wall and it stays there. So it's a little bit easier to digest on those songs that also have some harsher vocals. You're able to digest that bass sound a little bit better. Songs that are more melodic, that are a little bit brighter, not that this is a super bright record, this record really has an underlying dark belly to it, but songs that have a little bit more space for the sound to breathe, having that bass come through, and not just come through, but really break through, punch through the overall sound that surrounds it, it jolts the track a little bit too much. It becomes too noticeable. You want the bass sound on a record like this, on this style, on an album that has this sort of experience, to be impactful at times, but to never really become the focus of your attention as a listener. You don't want that bass sound to be on the back of your head, always creeping in and kind of distorting a little bit of what the guitars are trying to do and the message that the vocals are trying to put forward. It needs to be a little bit better in terms of how you blend it in the overall experience. So this is my only negative for this record, is really allowing the bass more often than not to come through. Like I said, it works well on songs that have a little bit more thickness around them because it hides it, but it doesn't work so well on songs that doesn't have that heaviness, that doesn't have that thickness. Outside of that, I love the experience. The guitars were phenomenal. I love the solos, the sound of the guitars, the old school approach, while not necessarily, like I said, feeling dated. Really great execution guitar-wise that injolts or infuses, I should say, a lot of energy, a lot of vibrant energy into this record, and allows most of the songs to really have a catchy, hooky chorus. Not always the case when you think of classic heavy metal, when you think of going back in time to the early 70s, mid 70s, when the genre started to take hold. When you think about bands like that, like I'm thinking obviously of Black Sabbath, you don't necessarily associate them with hooky choruses. I mean, they were hooky, but that's not necessarily what you associate them with. And this band really captured that essence of having hooky choruses. Sometimes I feel like it's intended, the way they're designed, specifically with the lyrics. But sometimes it doesn't feel intended. It just feels the natural ebb and flow of how they write music, of how they put their songs together. It just feels a lot more organic. And the ones that feel a lot more organic work even better because it just seems like the natural progression of where the song was, where the song is going, and how it's going to take you there. On top of all of this, you have great vocals. I honestly enjoyed a lot more the cleaner style, if you will, of the vocals versus the harsh vocals. Not that I didn't like the harsh vocals. I just felt like the clean vocals carried the message well enough. The harsh vocals, they were sporadic, so because they weren't consistent on every single song, I was able to digest them a little bit better. But for an album like this, for a band that has this sound, less is more, and I honestly felt that way about them. I would love to see more of those clean vocals, perhaps pushing those clean vocals to their edge of how far you can take them and still feel connected and still feel balanced and still feel warm in the delivery. But they were definitely the bread and butter of this record, and they're definitely the highlight vocally of what this album has to offer, which is a super fun record to listen to. And if you're a fan of bands that have this old school sound, but you don't necessarily want to hear an album that feels like it's absolutely dated, this record perhaps scratches an itch that you may have. And I think that's going to be the selling point of this album, is going to be the ability to feel old school, but not necessarily sounding old school, if that makes sense. So a fun record to listen to, a fun record that you guys should check it out. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I obviously have to start off, obviously to me because I heard the record, I have to start off with Dead Queen. The chorus is gold, and this is a synopsis of the kind of lyrical content that you can expect from this album. I'm not saying that every song has this sort of lyrical content, they're not Ailstorm, but this is a song that the chorus, and this is the opening track, the chorus spoke to me immediately. Being the opening track, it captured my attention, and this is exactly what an opening song needs to do. It needs to be hooky, it needs to be catchy, it needs to capture your attention so that you can be glued to the rest of the album to discover more about the band and about the record itself. The chorus of this song lets us know 4 things about the singer, or maybe about the band, but at the very least about the singer. 1 is that he eats pussy, 2 is that he eats ass, 3 he drinks liquor, and 4th he smokes grass. I couldn't have come up with a better chorus than this. This chorus is absolute gold. I loved it. And outside of that, it's a fun song to listen to. The bass on this track doesn't pop as much, or is not as noticeable. It's blended into the mix of the sound a little bit better because the nuances of the guitar sound on this track and the nuances of the song itself allows the bass to still come through, but come through in a less impactful way. And I think that's the winning formula that I would have liked to see more consistent throughout the entire record. The vocals and guitars have this ability to really carry the song, really putting themselves, both of them, on the driving seat, because this is an album that really lives off of the guitar sound and vocals first and foremost, and this track is a perfect example of that. And when you get into that chorus, it's very hooky, sounds great, memorable, and like I said, you find out a lot about the band in one single song. It also has a great solo section. Overall, there's a great riff that really carries the track through. Phenomenal track to open this record. Next we have Nobody Knows. Now the bass underlines this track really well, and at times it really pops through, and sometimes it pops through a little bit too much. But it still allows the guitars to drive the song, to be the main focus of the listener's attention. And that to me is important for a track like this. A track that once again has a very hooky and catchy chorus, both musically and vocally. It captures the energy of the song, which is a great element to have on a track like this. And then it has some vocal layers throughout the track that makes the song feel a lot more texture. It adds warmth, it adds size, it adds depth to the performance. A very dynamic song. This is a very dynamic song, both vocally and musically. You don't necessarily see what's coming until you're already in it. It has that roller coaster ride feel built in within the song itself. Last but definitely not least, The Hard Way. And to take a word out of the title of the song, hard, this song is not hard, but it's definitely heavy. It has a little bit more bite, has a little bit more thickness, has a little bit more volume. Definitely one of the heavier songs on the record. It also has some harsh vocals on it, and that obviously adds to the feeling of heaviness of the song. But you could feel it from the beginning that this is going to be a more, I wouldn't say methodic, but a more slow way, maybe not even slow, but a more paced or a well-paced track that allows the heaviness to have a specific impact on how you move. Not that it's moving slower because of the heaviness, that's not the case, but it allows you to digest that heaviness a little bit better because it doesn't have this ripping riff going all the way through it. It's more about the wall of sound, it's more about the volume, it's more about the elements coming together, drums, guitars, and bass working to create that sense of heaviness, to create that style, and then coming in with the harsh vocals to sprinkle that in order for you to feel that the heaviness of the track is not just one-dimensional, but rather across all the different parameters of the song, both musically and vocally. So great track because of all these dynamics and everything that it has to offer. This is it. Black Absinthe, On Earth or in Hell, out March 27th, released once again independently. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section, and I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.